that?
Those big words, elder, you used there, they have confused us.
We used these words in our lessons in the past.
Indigenous.
Yes,
I think it's indigenous.
That, my nephew, what's his name again? Is he around?
Malasa.
Yes.
He's here. In fact, he's ready to give an answer to that question.
Okay, okay. Yes. Malasa, could you explain to our class?
No, I mean, I know. Obviously, indigenous. I think someone has already mentioned is like would be music which is all its roots are from that particular place, so it'd be indigenous. And synthetic is the idea of like almost mixing some music things together. So it would be like mixing maybe some indigenous Zambian music with some traditional Western music. Automatically, that would be synthetic. And then the other ones, though, I can't remember which one were the other ones there. Was it syncretic?
I mentioned synergetic.
Oh, synergetic. I have no clue what that one is.
Okay. But anyway, the first two explanations are very, very good. And indigenous and synthetic, that is what we have been learning about in the past or recently. We also have what we call contemporary music. Contemporary music is what is widely accepted throughout the world, like pop, the hymns that we sing, all those are what we call contemporary music, because that is accepted here in Africa, in the West, and everywhere else it is accepted. But indigenous, like Marasa said, is music that belongs to a very specific group of people. The music that belongs to South Africans is indigenous to the South Africans. Music that belongs to the Nigerians only is indigenous to Nigerians. Music that belongs to Zambia is indigenous music to Zambians. Then we also developed further, like Malasa said, music that has a mixture between the contemporary world or the current world and some indigenous trends. It is called synthetic music. Could someone give me, I used to give a lot of examples. Could someone give me an example amongst the songs we did, or any song that you may know from where you come from that is indigenous? From there, we will ask for a song that is synthetic, and then we will probably also ask for a song that is contemporary, so that we know the differences between the things. And then we'll come to the characteristics of indigenous music and the characteristics of synthetic music and the characteristics of contemporary music. Let's start with indigenous. Any example of an indigenous song?
I think all of us should give example.
What was that song I asked you today about? Oh, there was some song by, who are those ladies in Zambia again?
Echo Divine.
Yeah, there was a song I was listening to today. I think it was called yeah. Yeah,
that one is not.
I don't know what that is. Would that be indigenous, or because apparently that is a song which has been
rearranged
a lot of times.
Okay.
Are we on mute? There's
No.
that music the nun used to sing, which to me sounded indigenous as Eastern Province. Though it's a Christian song, but they sang it in, I think it's Chewa, they sang. it went like this. Kudanda ula belewanga sikulina usiku. Usiku sinagone nachezera kulila banzanga.
That's tradition.
Anyone else before I make a comment with an indigenous song?
Indigenous song. As in, you want examples or comment on what the others have?
No.
We are looking for examples.
Examples.
Then
This one,
we'll go to-
I'm in between whether it's indigenous or it's been westernized, but I'll sing it a little bit. Listening konto tangilila uwamweo abumbele ichalo abika pona nebo pagutila tumulumbe.
Okay. Anyone else?
I still have messed up the words, but you accept it.
I wanted to hear one from
From St. Lucia.
I wanted to hear an indigenous song from St. Lucia, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Traditionally, we would sing, it would be soca and it would be calypso. And calypsos are usually, what shall I say, formulated after an occurrence, something that has happened on the island, something that's infamous, and they will sing. If the prime minister has done something wrong, they will sing about him. And usually the words are not always complimentary, so I won't sing them. But
Okay,
it's composed of regular beats, repetitive beats, and a lot of syncopation.
Is calypso similar to like reggae style?
No, it's different. The rhythm is different.
It's like Cuban.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else before I start making comments about the answers that you've given?
So me, I think there's a song it has just gone, which I think it was sung in the Catholic Church. When we were growing up, it was so what was ish. But obviously, if I use the example of Moye Gamwe Agulima, as you gave us, it's one of the indigenous songs that when you sing, it sort of symbolizes it means something, even if it's not a song that originally was composed for religious purposes, but it meant something in the society. So as you sang last time, moye gamwe agulima obuzuba bagutandabala ojala go mulira bumba temujala. So that is more of indigenous, which has got no contemporary part of it in its composition, so to say.
It has not been tempered with.
Yes.
Akazi amfumu afuma shanogo madodo kumanda tawanda.
Okay, very good. Very, very, very good. First of all, I'll start with what our sister mentioned there. She talked about calypso.
Yes.
Calypso, I'm very happy. I wish we could have an example, but I'm very happy with the definition that you gave. And the calypso, for the rest of us, calypso is indigenous to the Caribbean.
Yes.
Calypso is indigenous to the Caribbean. The Caribbean people have a bit of relationship with the South America.
Yes.
Although calypso is not necessarily found in South America, but
No,
you
it's
share the samba and you share the rumba. I know
That's
that
right.
there's a lot of rumba
Yeah.
in the Caribbean. There's a lot of samba in the Caribbean, but calypso is exclusively to the Caribbean.
Yes, it is.
And I loved when you say the rhythm is different
Yes.
from reggae.
Totally.
So is normally a high tempo.
Yes. Very rapid.
Strong rhythms.
Yes.
Very rapid. And yes, a lot of syncopation. Syncopation means maybe an instrument is moving in a different rhythm and another instrument moving in a different rhythm, but creating a combination. That's
beautiful sounds. Yes.
Yes.
And also we do use the steel drum quite a lot. The steel pan.
The steel drum is very dominant in calypso
Caribbean.
music.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll find a way of giving an example probably next week of calypso music. But then,
I will probably Google. I'll Google an example and send it.
Okay, that would be lovely. Now, moye gamwe ya bulima pamuntanga.
Nkwa.
You actually sang it as indigenous as it can ever be. The way I normally sing it to you, there has been some small little modifications to bring it into the scale that we know, which is do re mi fa sol la ti do. And when we do that, then we have created what we call the synergetic. If you could sing it one more time, the way you sang it.
Moye gamwe ya gulima, moye gamwe ya gulima, ubuzuba bw'okutandabala oya kujala gamulila bumba nde mujala.
Ibuzuba bw'okutandabala muyojala gamulila bumba nde mujala.
Yes.
That is the original Tonga tune. But then we have changed it to Ibuzuba bw'okutandabala muyojala gamulila bumba nde mujala. It is now sounding a bit more
major scale.
Wide, acceptable worldwide. The way Mr. Muchanga sang is the way it is accepted by the Tonga people. So the way it is sung by the Tonga people makes it indigenous. The way I sing it makes it contemporary. And then and then we call it synergetic. Because it's easily identifiable by anyone. Then Brother Mwemba sang something. That was Mutanga. Now, Brother Mwemba, you sang something. Could you sing that again?
But director said I've messed up the words, but I'll try.
Don't worry. Just go ahead.
Listening konton tangilila uamweo.
Okay. Now, what I wanted to go to was it is the style of music that we are very, very interested in, not necessarily the words. He may be right in saying that the words are different, because normally what we know is listening konton keminako. God is the staff on which I will lean. That is the original meaning of the song. God is the staff, that word, like the Moses wrote, is the staff on which I will lean. So, what you sang, Brother Mwemba, is pure contemporary.
Not indigenous.
No. It is very heavily based on our contemporary music. I will talk about it as we go further. But for now, we'll describe it as a
Contemporary.
as
Contemporary.
or synergetic.
Mm.
Yes. And then my mom, you sang that Chewa song.
Mm.
Could you sing it again just for the sake of reminder of everybody?
Mm. Kudandaula belewanga sikulila usiku usiku sinagone nachezela kulila panzanga.
That is purely indigenous. It's actually when I first did our first lessons, I gave descriptions of different kinds of songs and events that we singing.
Yeah.
I talked about weddings. I talked about funerals. I talked about working. You remember that time?
Yes.
This
Yeah.
song, yes, this song is a funeral song.
Oh.
Pure
Yeah.
funeral song. I've actually been to some funerals where I've heard the Chewas sing it,
Mm.
even the Tumbukas sing it. So that is a pure Chewa funeral dirge. We call them dirges. Dirge. That's a funeral dirge.
Mm.
Was there any other example that was given?
Titwe, titwe.
Okay, very good. Titwe is similar to what I gave you as Moyega Mwiya Gulima, Moyega Mwiya Gulima. It is a play story song. It is a story song, but it is based on what we would call, the words I'll use, based on Western idiom. It is a proper song in the Eastern province, but it is influenced by the Western culture. I'm going to talk about it a little bit as we touch the history that we touched last week, for us to understand where these songs have been coming from. The song that my sister sang when the Chewa song, it is untempered with by outside influence. It is untempered with by outside influence. The way Muntanga sang Moye, that is the way it is sung untempered by outside influence. The way we sang Titwe Titwe, that's the way we are now singing, tempered by Western influence. So, Titwe Titwe is somewhere in between synergetic and synthetic. In fact, I would say synthetic. The rhythms are still very heavily indigenous, but the melody has now been influenced by the major scale, which is not African and which is not Zambia. I hope I've answered that.
Yes.
The tune is now influenced by Western influences, but the rhythm is still very African. Akazi ya mfumu, olo msitolo, ochito tangaza, nandodo mumanja, iyaiti baja. I remember doing that song at school for the school choir. So it is a story song, but the melody has a lot of major scale influences. And then we'll discuss how that is happening or how that happened. So we have looked at the different types of music developed from different influences. Mwemba, Iliamwachimba, that is how our youth are now singing. They are influenced by what you call the a cappella style. Although, for me, I would say the real a cappella is not a style of music per se. A cappella is music, any kind of music without any instrumental
accompaniment. Yeah.
Yes, without any instrumental accompaniment. But then what you sang, which we are calling a cappella these days in Zambia, is in reality, it's a form, it's a fusion, a form of R&B and hip hop. Especially R&B. Because R&B is a music that is based on improvisation, more like jazz. So that is what now, it is part of what I would call the youth culture. It's actually the youth culture. So as the years are going by, this style is slowly developing. In Zambia, we first heard it from, was it the Resolution and City Prophets? And I think Jordan Alliance in the very, very late 80s and very early 90s. It was a style that took a bit of time to accept, but now it is very, very, very prominent amongst our youth.
Yeah.
So those are the styles of music that we have been learning about. Now, at least we have talked about indigenous, we have talked about synthetic, and we have tried to define and explain. I like the description that my sister gave because she gave the characteristics of the calypso music. She said there's a lot of syncopation. There's a lot of high rhythm. The music is usually very hyperactive. That is what calypso is. Now, for the other music, we have explained what Brother Mwemba gave us, the characteristics of our contemporary, what I would call contemporary gospel, which has very heavy fusions of R&B. But then let's go to what Faustino gave us. I called it synthetic. I said the rhythm is heavily African. In fact, I would say indigenously African, but the melody is influenced by the major scale. Titwe, titwe, iyai titwe, ntwebaja. Titwe, titwe, iyai titwe, ntwebaja. Akazi ya mfumu, kolo wa musitolo, ochito tangaza, na mchira wa ng'ombe, na ndodo kumanga, iyai titwe, ntwebaja. We are together on that one, right? So
Yes.
the song is ending on do when you listen to it.
Do, yeah.
Yes, but the song that my sister sang, the one which is the funeral song, does not end on do. The song that she sang is Chewa. The song that you are singing by Faustina is also Chewa. But you can hear the differences in the mood created by this song. The Chewa funeral song gives you a funeral mood. But the Titwe Titwe gives us a lively, excited mood. It is a story song. And usually the stories in Africa, They are associated with us sitting around the fire in the evening and hearing stories from our older folk.
Yes.
And usually the stories are bordering around either events or bordering around morals. In this particular case, this song is bordering around an event of a princess who walks into a shop and is showing off. That is what the song is all about. There's a story behind that song. So I'm sure we have summarized a little bit about the different styles. But then there's something I think that will be very valuable today around T2. How come we have these songs that are coming from the villages, but they have this Western influence of the major scale? I think that's the question that we can ask, and today can be the new start. When the missionaries came, they taught us the hymn. I think we've talked about that before. They taught us the hymn, and they pushed us away from our own music, which in their perceiving, our music was influenced by negative spirits, which we are trying to reorganize ourselves so that the music can be looked at differently, isn't it? Now,
Yeah.
when they taught us that, we reached a certain level in our lives where we felt we needed to be independent, political independence. We started composing songs with the influence of the hymn. Most of the songs we started creating were influenced by the hymn, which we had now been taught in our churches. The reason was not because we loved that music. The reason was because we wanted to tease the white man using his own music. And we started creating songs like Tiende Pamozi Limtima Umo. They are indigenous songs that have synthetic elements. What other example can I give?
China Chitika.
Yeah. But I would like to give you an example that will. China Chitika is a gospel song which was now, I would say, innocently influenced. But I want us to know the songs that were deliberately influenced for the sake of doing what? For the sake of teasing the white man. Tiende Pamosi, we were talking about our freedom and independence. And we used the Western style that would be easy for the Westerners to understand the message. When they hear the songs, it was easy for them to understand that the African wants his independence now. So many songs that were sung during that period, the colonial period, when Africans started fighting for independence. Chisokone chenzeko kade lomba lelo nibo mala kwacha. Chisokone kwacha kaunda maye. You can hear the tune. It is very familiar in terms of the tune. It is familiar. It's easy to understand. What other example can I give? Aye, Zambia, aye, Toleteka, Tawama, Chasakona, Lelo Mono Zambia, Abana Zambia, Lequaya, Cha Lelo. Yes, it is influenced by the Western culture. Why were we singing this song? Because we felt that it was going to be very easy for the colonial masters to hear the message that we had in our music. When Titwe Titwe was being composed, it had nothing to do with the Western. We had already been influenced by the tune of the Westerners. We kept our rhythm, but we created songs based on the major scale. And these songs started coming a lot around us. Give you we in province certain gentleman. I don't know that Tanga was old enough to remember this gentleman. Called Beginian. Babola mwana monga nova sama mualeo. Babola mwana monga izu adiabola. You remember that, Mr. Muntanga? Is he there? Or he's cooking his nishima?
You can't remember that.
Now there was also
He was on mute.
Oh, we were on mute. I was even singing. I remember it even being played on Radio 1.
Yes, and even on TV.
Yeah.
Monde wabaisha wazivina.
Nice.
Ulama balaji buno monde wabo. Monde wabaisha monde. You can hear the tunes are very familiar with every other language, but you can hear the rhythm still being maintained in Tonga.
Because that one says when every Tonga who has got a cow has got an identification.
Yes.
So when the cow strays, so it will be recognized by that identification of the family. So they know that that cow belongs to Muntanga.
Yes.
That's what the song is all about.
We also have Gumala, Gumala. Tugabone Shimunenga. Tugabone Shimunenga. Shimunenga ati wala lama samuwe. I've forgotten. But something like that. I think you've heard such song. It's a song them. For yes. I think it is a song for a traditional festival.
So that one is Shimunenga. Shimunenga is, I think my sister from Namgala can correct me. Shimunenga is when the dry season, there is no grazing grass now in the upper, what we call the plateaus. They have now to go what is called the Wuwila. So Shimunenga is the moving of the cows from the dry land to the Kafue Gorge where they have plenty of grass to graze there.
Like the Kuomboka.
So now when they are moving, because there are a lot of head of cattle that are shifting from one place to another. So that's the singing that goes on.
They call it Shimunenga.
Shimunenga, yes.
Wonderful. You can see that most of our songs are based on our activities. But the important thing here is that most of these tunes that were developed after the colonial masters came, they are influenced by our colonial masters' style of melodies based on do and do. I wanted to give a few songs also from Eastern province. Many of us may remember Lazarus Tembo, a blind Zambian man. He's now late. Kola, yes. But the song that I give is Achivinda Takuyana Payanyama. Mwakuona mwakupaila kanyama. Oh kanyama. Oh kanyama. Lelo tatovela njovu. You can hear him very heavily, rhythmically, African and Zambian. But in terms of tune, he has gone Western. And that is what we are normally these days accepting. So that is how our music has developed to become, I think, what I would call international tendencies are in it, or contemporary tendencies are in our music now. I think someone wanted to make a comment.
Oh, yeah, no, I just want to ask you, so you can take an indigenous song, rearrange it, and become synthetic or change
it can synthetic.
Synthetic. So if we're talking about kutwana kukutwani kwa milimo, so that also has been okay.
Yes, yes. It is very heavily indigenous, but it has some international tendencies. The scale in which we are using is making it identifiable a little bit by those who do not belong to our culture. But as Zambians, most of the time, like the song you have just sung, those songs are still very rhythmically indigenous. The rhythms that we are using are indigenous. And what are the characteristics of our rhythm when we sing? In our previous lessons, we learned that our rhythm is very related to the way we speak. It's very related to the way we speak. And I remember that I gave an example. What was that example? Vanemweva busumino. Langeni ubololoke. The way I'm speaking rhythmically is the way I will sing rhythmically. Vanemweva busumino langeni ubololoke. Vanemweva busumino langeni ubololoke. That is the way we also speak. And that's in all the songs that you've given as examples, except the one that was given by Brother Mwemba, the rest of the songs had the African Zambian rhythm in them. And that is what makes them synthetic. The other one we call the contemporary, but these ones are synthetic. Even the ones I've given in Tonga, the ones by Greg Nyanda. Yes.
So, Elder, question.
Yes.
So when we look at the indigenous, can let me put it like our church as a whole.
Yes.
Does it have a musically what is called indigenous Seventh-day Adventist music?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. We have mistakenly or erratically, we have called the hymn Adventist music. That's what we say. We call it Adventist music. But it's very difficult for us to say that this is Adventist music. When in the Adventist church, walikwata bakaloshi ni bakalonda, walikwata ba muntanga his tonga from his tonga. We also have my sister from the Caribbean, and we also have Bamwesa, who is Bemba. How then can you say this is Adventist music and be able to bring all these people together and give them one music? It's not possible. Because they come from different backgrounds. Even the music that we have in the Bible and the Psalms that David wrote, they are based on Jewish idiom. Am I lying?
No.
No.
The songs that David wrote in the Bible, together with the Asaph and Haman, when you go to the Psalms in the book of Psalms, you're going to find a lot of songs written. They are based on Jewish idiom. They are not based on Adventism. No. Those are the controversial issues that we need to resolve so that we understand and worship God from we worship God from a view that we understand and know. It's a bit difficult to explain what I'm trying to say, but I'm sure you are understanding because we have been interacting for quite some time. For instance, my argument is, can I be fully in the spirit, worshiping God in English? My argument will be, it's not possible because the mannerisms of English, I'm not familiar with them.
So one question,
The mannerisms, yes.
Just before I lose the trend of thought on where you are. So
yes.
I get what you're saying, but then I look at the demographies of most of our churches in Zambia, and the membership. You will find that there will be Southerners, Northerners, Easterners, Kaluvales from all over, who may have different kind of indigenous musical influences.
Okay.
So how do we then bring all of these people together so that they worship in truth and in spirit? What is the commonality to bring them together?
In Zambia is one of the most complicated scenarios because they have 72 tribes. And when you come to Zambia, those of you who already know Zambia, these 72 tribes are very different from each other.
Yeah.
Very different from each other. The way they speak, the way they use their words, the way they behave, their traditional ceremonies are very different. As a result, they are very, very different. Now, coming back to Brian's question, how do you worship Jesus? So the hymn has sort of helped us a little bit to bring about a common ground. There's a word that the late Dr. Kavunda liked to use, which even my late father used, and I've heard the politicians that are using it now. The small little phrase, they were saying unity in diversity. You got that? Unity in diversity.
Diversity.
Yes. Very important for us to be tolerant of other tribes. My argument, Brian, I know where you were going. Zambia has too many tribes. So how do you worship in truth and in spirit together? I don't know. On that one, I don't want to lie to you. I don't know. But even when we use the hymn, we are using someone's culture, which is the Western culture. I think you hear me there, isn't it?
No,
We're still using someone else's culture.
I hear you, my elder, and I mean, obviously, where I would be going to is, and I like the unity in diversity because that's cool. And I mean, this topic is very key at the time when our country is going through different kinds of challenges.
Exactly.
And the only way we would go forward, one, we have to appreciate our culture and tradition and promote it. So that I agree. But would we get people to have that tolerance and just appreciate? I mean, the way any kind of song we play in Zambia, whether it's lamba or whatever, I will just enjoy it and get into it. And where you just have to bring people to accept and enjoy, because I mean, even though we'll have 72 languages, we are Bantu speakers with a lot of commonality, even in intonation.
Yes.
So there are certain things which will still bring us back together in terms of trying to get some.
I hear you. You are right. What we need, first of all, is a change of mindset. That's number one. a change of mindset. Now, what do I mean by change of mindset? Maybe because I'm a musician who's been trying to study Zambian music, maybe I already have a privilege of enjoying when I hear Kaloshi and his people singing, of enjoying when I hear Vamuntanga and his people singing. I enjoy. When I go to West Eastern Province, I really enjoy the music. Maybe it's because of my exposure to music. And yet, I'm Chishinga from Kawambwe. Now, we need the rest of the country to start going in that direction, to be able to appreciate other languages. That will bring us to unity in diversity. Now, there was a recommendation. I think I've said this 2 or 3 times before on this platform, and Brian will be my witness. There was a recommendation from the conference, from the general conference, for us to create our own hymns. There was a recommendation, and people like Mr. Mwesa and Kaloshi were supposed to sit down together. Kaloshi brings the songs, a few songs from the Kalundas and the Luvalis, and Mwesa should be a unifying factor because he's a music expert. And Brian Songa brings the songs from where he comes from, and Vamuntanga valetana wenyimbo. And we put all these songs in the hymn books. Being Zambians, our mindset should now become such that we can sing songs from these different languages. In an indigenous way or in a synthetic way. The way we have developed from indigenous to synthetic. From Mayo Mayo Bamba, Wagazumina Gupenga Gutwangulula, and the song that my sister sang from the Chewa song. We moved to Titwe, Titwe, Yai Titwe. The tunes should now get to that level. There was that other example by Mwemba Bachpela. What was that song? Not that one. The second one he sang.
Oh, he sang a section.
Yeah, he sang.
Yeah, there was another one he sang. It was a story song.
Mr. Mwemba.
Sorry, I missed that one.
Yes, I was saying there was a song, Mwachimba, a story song.
Oh, kutwa na kutwa kwa milimo.
Exactly. We need to create songs for our hymn books based on these small little tunes we have been creating around our evening fires when the stories have been told. So this is what we need to do. And then we also need to do the Moyega Muyagudima from the tune that Muntanga sang to the tune that I am now singing. Those are the songs now we should start taking to our hymn books. So we need a few people like the Brian Songas who are administrators and the Faustino Kaloshi who are musicians to start somewhere. We need someone somewhere to bring us together and we start creating this thing.
But well said, Mr. Director. I think on that one we have a big problem. And this problem is
self-esteem. The problem is self-esteem.
Yeah, exactly as you are saying. But the major one is we tend to look at music from the villages to be backward as compared to the music which is being developed in Lusaka. And this is why, this is why most of the musicians now, when they go, even Muntanga, we take him to the village. You go first by condemning the way they are singing there. But to find that people there, they've never even studied music, but they are able to harmonize their songs in a very...
they actually create better music than the music that we are creating.
That's true.
True, that's very true.
But when groups like Glorious Band come up and sing the songs in the way they sing it, and every Zambian love it, yeah, and they sell more copies than even people who are very learned in music.
Yes.
And, yeah, and this is maybe where we should, as you're correctly saying, our mindset. We tend to look at music from outside Zambia first.
Down.
We look at
down
music
upon ours.
Yes, we look at America. When you talk about music, you're looking at England. The music, you're going to Australia, but you're not looking at music as Zambia. Yeah. That's where the major problem is.
Self-esteem. That is our problem. There's no self-esteem amongst ourselves. That is the number one thing I will say. And you gave an example of Glorious Band. Do you think that there's any artist in Zambia who has sold more than PK Shah? And yet he was very indigenous. Those are some of our best-selling artists, more than the current musicians we have.
Big time.
Yeah. So indigenous music, and when we build our own self-esteem, we even become more original.
Yes.
I'm going to say something that is not musical, but because of my musical experience, I have been able to look at some of these things. This is very controversial. Is Western civilization true civilization? That's the question I'm asking. Is Western civilization true civilization? Why am I talking about such a question? It is the same civilization that has brought about global warming. You hear me? It is Western civilization that has brought about global warming. So the question is it true civilization? Here we are in Africa, we use certain methods of farming and a certain way of living that has preserved our continent. So which one is better? The industrialization or our African way of life?
Obviously, it's our African way of life.
Yes. And that's the reason why the Westerners are now slowly wanting to come and invade our African land, because it is still rich, it's still fertile. Someone may say no because we are backward, but I believe that sometimes to be backward is better than to be civilized and to destroy the world.
Yeah, and that's why I think education has somehow brought harm to us. Because when I look at the music, the way you're talking about music, it's the same with the lifestyle in Zambia. When I look at lifestyle now, us who were brought up by our parents who were maybe not even educated, we grew up in a traditional way of living. And we embraced that. While they educated us, we went to school and then we took on the culture, the Western culture, and that's what we are teaching our children. To a point where the government has been forced to introduce local language in our schools to teach our children who should have learned the language at home with the parents. They have to learn it in school.
My sister, you have said something very, very important. But then I would like to make one comment. Yes, these things are related to music, but I would like to make one comment over this same education system. In my opinion, I'm using the word opinion. In my opinion, it was an interesting way of the colonizers by giving us their education. Some of our African friends have slowly started moving away from that. Tanzania, Nigeria, most of West Africa, and even South Africa. They are not just learning in local language. They are not just learning in local language. They are doing something further. They've started changing their curriculum. I hope curriculum is something that we understand, right?
Yes.
They've started changing their curriculum. As I speak right now, there's something that I am trying to influence amongst us as teachers, and it's slowly taking root. I've been saying, why is our music education based on the West? Why are we learning about Beethoven? Why are we learning about Mozart? Those are the arguments I've been giving. Why don't we learn about the Nyao and still become doctors in music? Why don't we learn about Budima and still become doctors in music? That has been my argument. So as a result, we have a few who are already very educated in music, who know what we should look for in our music for us to be able to create the so-called curriculum. And it is some of those things, when they are developed, that will help us, even in our churches, because we will have a direction. And that direction will be, and it will be a Zambian direction. So when we start creating music and we become educated in music, we become professors. I would be very happy if one day I become a professor of music and you call me Professor Mwesa, but based on what
traditional music
in African music, not because of the West.
Okay, so very cardinal point, and I can see we are digressing. We could have continued discussions on these interesting topics because it's a big topic. I mean, when you look at Canada and what's been happening with the children of indigenous people's bodies who were found, it comes down to the history of what happened, how they were trying to get them into the schools to condition them. It's, I mean, when you understand your history, it helps us when we're looking in the future, and it's a bigger topic. So I just want to say it's 7:10.
Thank you. I've noticed. I've noticed.
Yes.
I've noticed that it's 7:10. For me, it's 8:10. So we were doing a bit of revision. Thank you very much for today. We were doing a bit of revision, and there are still a lot of points that we need to digest and to operate on them and open them so that we can start slowly making or becoming an influence of our own way of singing. It's very, very important. I know that this may not be a very systematic way of learning or a professional way of learning, but it is my prayer and hope that as we go ahead, we will pick out certain points and find a way of influencing the so-called Adventist family so that our music can become a bit more definite from an indigenous point of view. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Director.
Yes.
But before you summarize, I mean, before you just finish, so in today's presentation, I mean, there's been touching on indigenous music and synthetic, and you touched on the recommendation which was given on rewriting the hymns, basing it on local. So if, as agents of change, we were to go in a certain direction which we're influencing, are you saying at this stage of the history of Adventist music in Zambia where we are, the only way forward would be to have a mix of indigenous and synthetic, because that's the only way we carry everyone? And is it correct to think here, what I've noticed is when we've sung traditional songs, they've been enjoyed a lot.
Yeah.
But is it because they've got a synthetic element in them that people can relate to it? Or that's an analysis which I haven't done, whether the songs which have been sung are synthetic or indigenous, but it's a good thought.
I think from the feedbacks that we got, they say that when we sing our traditional music or our local language music, the expression that we do is more natural than when we sing English.
That is point number one.
Mm-hmm.
Point number two, in why our music is more accepted. In the West, music starts at nursery. And even when you go into college, where most of you are right now, you may be doing IT, you may be doing engineering. Around your corridors, you meet a lot of music. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And around your corridors of learning, you meet a lot of music. Now, our friends in the West have one beautiful small little advantage over us. Immediately we sing indigenous, they are able to identify what it is. Because in their learning music, they've been learning different kinds of scales and whatever it is. So they are immediately able to understand what we are doing. Oh, the Africans are singing in a minor mode and they are creating this kind of sound. As a result, they easily identify with what we are doing. We are unable to identify with ourselves, but them, they identify with ourselves. That's why we have experts in the brackets. That's why we have experts from the West who say, no, African music is voodoo, this and that, and whatever it is. All things, because they are trying to study our music, but they've failed to get inside of us to understand who we really are from a God's point of view of creation.
Mm.
But Elder, maybe just a question also, which when you look at the indigenous and the synthetic music, as you have put it, we look at the widely accepted one. It's much of both a mixture, so to say. Now, looking at the present condition, how well is this kind of music accepted in our churches compared to what we were brought up knowing, that the hymns are the things the Western hymns are the one to unify the church? Doesn't that come as if it's more of contradictory in the way that maybe when you try to promote something like you are going against the structure of the church?
Thank you very much. You have mentioned the three things that I think I can talk about. The first one is the hymns. The hymns are an indoctrination. That's a description I'll give. They are an indoctrination. There's nothing wrong with them, but they are an indoctrination. That's what we have been taught to accept as being the correct thing. Now, you need to understand that even the other thing is also correct. We have been indoctrinated to believe that hymns are the correct thing, from what you are explaining, my brother. Number two, you have talked about synthetic. Synthetic, I accept it because we are in a global village.
Mm.
I'm not saying that what we have learned is bad. We are in a global village where immediately we go into a certain place, let people easily understand us. That's number two. Number three, which is the indigenous point, we must also express ourselves. From what my sister was saying, the comments coming from those listening to you, they say you express yourself better from an indigenous point, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very important. Indigenous is also very important because it gives you one, self-esteem. The truth of the matter is that the hymns don't give you any self-esteem. Why? We have already discovered from what you are saying. You are unable to express yourself in a very original way using the hymn. And when you sing it, people just say, oh yeah, they've sung. But when you sing indigenous, people say, wow. Brian, you talked about in truth and in spirit. The in truth and in spirit is easily seen from the indigenous. am I telling a lie? I'm truthful, isn't it? When you are in your original language, indigenous, the in truth and spirit comes out of you.
Yeah, and I think as musicians, it's also the purpose of why you are singing, because we have different kinds of musicians, and sometimes we sing because we want to spread the word of God, and of course we have to
Then we go
have that
synthetic.
diversity whereby we are able to go to a group of people and sing for them to get the message of what we want to pass across.
Yes.
Then there's also praise and worship where you want to glorify God and sing praises to God. If I can do
for
it
you,
better in my
for
own language,
you,
I would
not
rather
for others. Thank you.
As the elder is
something very important.
Okay, I
we
think
can go on and on. Some of these topics, let me plan for them so that we digest them. She has talked about singing to edify yourself and also singing to edify others. So when you are singing to edify yourself and when you go indigenous, the in truth and in spirit comes out. When you are singing to edify others, you sing in something that they will be a bit more familiar with. And that is synthetic.
No, it's a very interesting topic. I mean, even when you talk of expression, when we sing indigenous songs, the interesting thing is that the people singing would have come from different languages in Zambia, but still they're expressing themselves better. I mean, obviously they understand what they're singing about, but even in English they do understand, but there's a difference.
There is a difference.
Very complex.
There is a difference. For some reason, there's some little small chip, microchip inside which God placed, which reacts to indigenous.
maybe my analysis on that one is that mostly when you are singing an English song, you sing it in a way where you are looking at the notes and thinking about this, including all the dynamics and other things pertaining to music. But normally when you are singing our local songs, sometimes we're overcarried and we just sing,
The expressions that you are talking about in our music come naturally. They just come out because they are part of our way of life. And then when you are singing in English, you are unable to identify yourself with that music the way they themselves would identify themselves with their own music.
Anyway, it has been a wonderful day as usual. It's always nice having you, Elder. And it's just I think we have to think about this and, dig more, explore more, research more, and then we'll soon find the conclusion about it. But it's a long and very powerful topic, which needs a lot of thinking. So we just want to thank you once again for opening up our minds and then for directing us in that area so that we may look at things in a different way than what we've learned or what we've known for years, looking at a certain type of music to be backward from the other. So it's a very, very powerful lesson. I just want to thank you for letting us go through it together. And it's good to see you as usual. So I think today we've gone over by 20 minutes. So,
as usual, we always go over.
So I just pray for next session.
Yeah.
Maybe just to go maybe back on the on music, like how to improve our singing. Maybe we need to focus on that one as well, because I know people struggle a lot on things like breathing, how to hold a note so that the note does not sound the semitone from a full tone, things like that. Those are the areas maybe for next week, for next meeting. And those are the areas maybe you concentrate on.
No problem.
So that after that, then we'll go back again to more history, so that we just have to be mixing them as we are going.
So just adding to the director, I think there's also a thirst for people to get to a point where they can inscribe some traditional songs. And so having that guidance, or yeah, I'll leave it there.
Okay. No problem. I hear you.
Okay. So over to the chair as we conclude.
Thank you very much.
I think we shall not hold Vamwesa even much longer. He's given us his time. We thank him, and we know the Nshima is waiting there with some wonderful
Chapatwa.
Yeah. That's what you're craving for, a director. Yeah.
There's beans today.
So we'll have a prayer. Sister Vandalina, are you ready to close for us in prayer? And then we can just finish. I will get off the live stream for now, and then we can just conclude.
Okay, we are praying.